Introductory Local Law Number 16 of 2014, amending Chapter 82 of the Code of the Town of Brookhaven entitled Neighborhood Preservation by amending Section 82-3 entitled Neighborhood Preservation Requirements and by amending Section 82-8 entitled Inspections. Legal notices for public hearings are published no less than 10 days and no more than 20 days prior to a public hearing in one of the legal town newspapers. Our office has received a signed affidavit of publication from the newspaper. Should the board render a decision tonight, this has been deemed a secret type 2 action.
Okay, and Beth, local law number 16 of 2014, it's all yours.
The proposal before you tonight is to add additional violations to our neighborhood preservation code. Currently, our code has a general statement about maintaining the properties free of conditions detrimental to health and safety. And we had used that code to write tickets for partitions and locked doors and things like that. And we decided that using this general statement wasn't enough, and that we wanted to specifically have code requirements that outlined the things that we determined to be detrimental to safety and health. So tonight we would ask to add to the code that there are dwelling structures and accessory structures shall be free of partitions or locked internal doors, barring access between segregated portions of buildings or dwelling units. That no bedroom or sleeping quarters shall have interior locked doors or deadbolt locked doors servicing the bedrooms and sleeping quarters. That no bedroom shall constitute the only means of access of another bedroom or habitable space and shall not serve as the only means of egress from other habitable spaces. And lastly, that carbon monoxide alarms and detectors shall be installed on every habitable floor of any dwelling structure or accessory structure with a carbon monoxide source in conformance with the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board?
I do have a question. Beth, there were some comments made earlier with respect to, I believe it's somehow related to this public hearing that we're having, related to the conditional discharge.
Absolutely.
Is there a portion of this that deals with the conditional discharge, and if you can explain what that code amendment signifies?
Yes, there's an additional section. We have had some enforcement issues in that when defendants would get a conditional discharge, that they would think that the inspection for the conditional discharge meant that you didn't need to have your rental inspection and your self-certification and any other inspections that might be required by a court order or anything else. So we've also added a section about conflicts with other chapters of law that states that nothing in this chapter shall be construed to negate the authority for inspections pursuant to other sections of law or court-ordered inspections. So that wasn't an additional element of today.
Okay,
correct.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do have a comment that I'd like to make if there are no other questions, but I don't want to stop anyone else from asking questions of Beth if necessary.
We do have speakers. I don't know if you want to do it now.
We do have speakers?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait until the speakers.
Okay.
So our first speaker is Bruce Sander. Next is Sean Nuzzo, and last is Anthony DeRosa. So in this situation, I have to swear you in. So we'll wait for Mr. Nuzzo. So if you'll just raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth? All of you, we'll do it together. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. So, Mr. Sander, you're going to have 5 minutes to speak on this, and you can begin.
These code changes to the town code, we feel, will hopefully help the disconnected judge in the 6th District Court make decisions based upon reality of the situation and not his own personal feelings, as was the case on 150 Christian Avenue. How can a judge make a decision that a double key locked bedroom door are not a health and safety violation is beyond any reasonable person's comprehension? Ask a fireman who has gone and risked his life at these type of illegal student rentals. My letter to the supervising judges will be going out this week regarding this ineffective, misguided judge. Tightening this part of the code will assist investigators in getting their appearance tickets held up in court. We are dealing with a savvy bunch of profit-hungry landlords that use and abuse the laws of this town for their own personal gain and ruin what was once a beautiful place to raise our families. Our members are very angry over the way the landlord at 150 Christian Avenue continues to violate court orders by not paying his fines, legally assessed in court, and not allowing court-ordered inspections of this property. The town needs to pull out all stops with this case and look for criminal violations at this point. We'd like to see action. We'd like to see it soon. Our group started out 300 people last year. We're now well over 1,300, and we are getting very unsettled and moving forward with the town's help. This situation went unguarded for years, and it is a Stony Brook University creation. We want to thank the entire board for supporting these and past changes to the town code that have helped turning the tide of illegal rentals. We are, however, not even close to being done, and there's a lot of work to be done. The issues, in fact, are twofold. One, being the number of investigators that are spread too thin around such a huge town. With only 7 in the entire town, we need additional full-time investigators in order to get this done. The town will find isolated additional enforcement employees to bring the additional revenue in that more than compensates for their salaries. Sometimes stepping out of the box like ISOP is what is needed here to raise revenue and help fix the growing problem. Let's see the town send a message to any prospective current rental property owners that there are laws to be followed in the town of Brookhaven, and we will enforce them with fines when they are not obeyed. Number 2, the inability for investigators to gain access to illegal homes without a warrant, such as my proposal for Flanagan. Have the new rental registration forms been completed? We understand they were stuck on Mr. Gershhouse's desk for probably a month by now, and from what I gather, they're stuck there. We would have yet to see the new form that would reflect important changes going forward in this process. Mr. Romaine, I would like to thank you personally for your continued undying support in helping us turn the tides and return our neighborhoods back to single family. Ms. Cartwright, we want to thank you and our new councilperson for your detailed attention to our concerns and trying to facilitate a meeting with Stony Brook President Dr. Stanley. I sure hope this happens soon, as our community has had enough. Stony Brook University is the cause of this housing mess. Stony Brook University needs to be a big part of the solution moving forward. I thank you very much.
One of the good things during public hearings is that we can respond to things, and I just will briefly respond and say absolutely. I know the court case that you took, you spoke about. That's what this law addresses, so that judicial interpretation is somewhat limited. We are concerned about that. We write laws, we write tickets, we go out there and try to enforce. We hope they get done. As far as getting into illegal homes, boy, would we love to do that. We know there's constitutional law that prevents the government from unreasonable searches, but if there's a way that that could be done to protect the public from some of these vacant homes or these overcrowded homes that have health and safety, and without infringing on our Constitution, we'd love to see that done. And lastly, you're absolutely right. I've repeatedly called on the university to consider working with private industry to build with private industry, give them a land lease like you did the hotel, to build additional dorm rooms and take some of the pressure off the community. They accept more students than they have dorm rooms for, who want to live at campus or nearby, which forces the community to bear an extra burden. So we are very cognizant of that, and thank you for your advocacy. And with that, I'm finished for the night. Thank you.
Mr. Nuzzo, you can begin.
Hi, I'm Sean Nuzzo, lead AP. I'm the president of the Civic Association of the Setauket and Stony Brook. The Civic Association supports the proposed code changes with the understanding that these measures are not enough. These changes, while necessary, are palliative measures, whereas we are punishing the symptoms, yet doing little to alleviate the actual cause. The fact that we have needed to create what has become a string of punitive measures against overcrowded houses should serve to demonstrate the clear and present need for a variety of housing options, which are presently lacking in Brookhaven and Stony Brook in particular. What we do have is an overstock of 1960s-style, auto-centric neighborhood developments, which, as national trends suggest, are rapidly falling out of favor with both the young and the old. Brookhaven is not alone in facing these post-sprawl challenges. It may benefit us to examine the strategies that many California municipalities are adopting today. It is interesting to note that much of California and Suffolk County were both developed in the second half of the 20th century and are facing similar challenges. If we intend to make Brookhaven an attractive and viable place to live and work in the coming decades, we need to start planning that suburban retrofit today. Thank you.
I have a question. Are you suggesting, and I know you've come to this town board before, building a vast amount of multifamily housing in proximity to the university?
What do you mean by vast?
Or a decent amount? Obviously not 2 units, but are you saying that you'd like this town board to approve multifamily housing in Stony Brook as opposed to what you call the 1960s model of single-family homes?
What I think most people are looking for today, you know, people, young people and old people, are pedestrian-oriented communities. So places where infrastructure may already be in place, sometimes at train stations, wastewater treatment facilities, things of that nature, large employment centers, where it might make sense to have a walkable community. You know, some people like that. No one's going to prevent people from living an automobile-centric lifestyle. I don't think that the town board's going to outlaw this at any point, but there are very few options for people who want to live, you know, a walkable lifestyle. And I think, you know, we see this. We see that people are downsizing. We see young people who can't afford big single-family homes. We see old people who want to downsize, and either they, you know, there's very few options. There's like places of last resort. So we hear multifamily housing and we hear apartments, and you really think about these are places where, oh, it's people, you know, who may not be able to afford, you know, a house, or these are places that are undesirable. But if done properly, like we see them doing in Pasadena, California, and other places in California, it can be very desirable, and it can be a very nice, livable place.
Well, I'm sure it can be. I'm just saying, as the president of your organization, if you have such locations, one place I noticed that you mentioned a train station, a sewage treatment plant. There was a plan under the former supervisor that was promulgated called College Town. Are you an advocate of College Town and building multifamily housing by the train station?
Oh, no, I'm an advocate of having a corridor study done. So let us take a look at that corridor. We're working with students at the university. There's a couple of different, the sustainability program and the environmental design policy and planning program, where we're looking at doing a corridor study of that. Who uses it? Why? Can we make it a little bit better? It's always hard to advocate for change because people come to Stony Brook and they come there for a reason. They come there because, you know what, I like Stony Brook. I live within walking distance of the train station. My wife and I could probably live anywhere in the country, but we think that Stony Brook is a fantastic place, and, you know, we want to continue to live there. You know, we got lucky because we got a little bungalow that you know, may not have been available to most other people. You know, there's a very limited variety available at this time in Stony Brook and in all of Brookhaven, for that matter.
Well, I'm just saying, I understand exactly what you're saying, but if you have such suggestions through Stony Brook or through your prominence as being the head of the Civic Association, if you bring those forward, I know this board will take a look at it. I think the view that's been shared by most Stony Brook residents, I would say, certainly want to see more housing, and Stony Brook certainly has the property to do so, to build those.
Stony Brook, the Hamlet, or Stony Brook the University?
Stony Brook University has more than an abundance of land to meet the demand. I went to Stony Brook as well. They have a ton of property, especially after Gyrodyne and that property and what they paid for it. They should certainly do something with it, but I think that most of the people in Stony Brook, especially the M section, enjoy that single-family quality of life. And although you may refer to it as something more dated in the 60s, a lot of people want the white picket fence, the single-family home, and would rather Stony Brook, again, I don't live in Stony Brook, but I know a lot of people who are in Stony Brook, would rather see the college just meet their demand and not have the increased burden on their community. But if you're saying there are areas in Stony Brook where multifamily housing can be achieved, I think the town board as an entity would entertain them if you came forward.
So there's multiple stakeholders here. So it's not just undergraduate students. There are professors, there are doctors. At any given moment, there are 50,000 people on the Stony Brook University campus, you know, for a variety of reasons. There are young doctors, young professors. What brought me and my wife here, we were Stony Brook students. We decided to stay. The housing problem, the housing shortage, the housing challenge isn't solely with Stony Brook students in the town of Brookhaven. There are people who want a variety of housing options, and we seem to be moving a little slowly, you know, in providing that. We have the Ronkonkoma hub, which, you know, might be something in the future, but we are, you know, there's very few options. I don't think anyone is suggesting that the people who want to live with the white picket fence should move or, shouldn't be allowed to have that. Why couldn't that remain? Why is that, that's kind of like a false choice where either you're going to have this or you're going to have multifamily housing, I think that there's room and there's probably, it's smart to have a variety of both.
I don't think this town is going to entertain a rather large multifamily housing development. It's going to be coming forward. It's filed with the planning department. It's not in the vicinity. But I'm just saying, you were talking about Stony Brook, and you mentioned a sewage treatment plant. Obviously, Stony Brook has one. Obviously, there's a train station in Stony Brook. So my question was to whether or not, because this board has not really taken up the College Town proposal of the former supervisor. And I just wanted to gauge your personal view with that of the Civic to see if you were in support of something that's been shelved as of now.
The Civic never saw a formal proposal. We'd be very interested in seeing,
How about the hypothetical idea of multifamily housing around the train station? I guess that's what I'm asking you. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine.
I usually don't get tricked into answering hypotheticals.
If I may, just, Councilman Panico, as Mr. Nuzzle just stated, that the Stony Brook University has been working and has a 25A study that was just recently completed. It was forwarded to my office, and I have forwarded it to the Law Department recently, and they plan to send it down to the Planning Department so we can see how we can work together. I've also reached out to the state and county elected officials to see if they would be willing to work with us, as well as Stony Brook University, to see how we can move forward with some form of a study there, without the proper funding from the state. And they were in agreement. So I'll be in touch with Mr. Nuzzle as it relates to this in the future.
I'd like to comment on this, if I may. Okay, I think Mr. Nuzzo's response that he has students making this plan without any consultation from our organization, which is probably 27 or 50 times larger than the Civics in Stony Brook. You're not consulting the homeowners who live in the vicinity, who want to maintain their single property. We want our single-family homes. If you're curious about it, Mr. Nuzzo, why don't you attend one of our meetings, because we will create our own civic association if that is necessary. Your 8 people that attend versus our 1,300, I think you are very narrow-minded, and I think this is a sad discussion to be had at a town board meeting. Thank you.
All right, we don't want to get into a debate. People, this is a public hearing. Mr. DeRosa?
Yes, Mr. DeRosa, you can begin.
Yeah, first I'd like to say longer-term housing on campus or off campus is something that we should address as a community, as a town council. But short-term is what we're concerned about right now, before it gets out of control. Earlier, I mentioned a couple of things we can do, publicizing to the landlords that we are taking action, we are finding them. That's going to scare them. That's going to show them that the town is on their case. We have to enforce the codes that are in place today, write the new codes to give us access to the houses as easy as we can. Enforcement now is the key to our success. We have to do it now. I started to say earlier that I received a letter at our post office box today from one of our residents. I'd like to read it to you. It shows you how the laws are in place, we find these people, they pay their fines, they make the corrections, the town inspects them, they're in compliance, and lo and behold, just like the 1337 Stony Brook Road party that we had in April, they fall out of compliance because no one's going to watch them all the time. But our neighborhood is starting to be, their eyes are open, they're watching, we're going to continue to inform the town. But here's a good example of a resident who wrote this letter today, and it's another house that we're going to have to watch. We feel we must make you aware of a rental home that has serious problems for many years. For a long time, it has been illegally rented to students and produced all the problems we have read about other rental homes: noise, parties, excessive vehicles, trash, fights, underage drinking, etc. After much pressure, the landlord, who lives in a quiet neighborhood in New Jersey, finally rented the home to an actual family last year. All the residents have been pleased. However, it seems that this was only a temporary solution for him, and now is presenting listings such as the one attached. Notice, this landlord is now intending to rent this home in our quiet family neighborhood to students once again. Notice how he states the home is suitable for 14 people. What? We have spoken to this man before. He is extremely unethical and has no respect or regard for what he has done to our lives and home values over the years. Former tenants of his have said that he would demand rent payments in cash only, which means he could possibly be evading tax laws as well. Please investigate and report this home. The landlord can be reached at the contact numbers listed on the attached listing. Be warned, he carefully screens his calls to evade complaints. Thank you so much for your help and the good work you do. Now, the ad was published in the Stony Brook University website. And in all fairness, they published it quoting the law. They say, suitable for 14 people considered a family or 3 unrelated people per Town Code Chapter 86, and emailed to the landlord's address. So the university is following the rules. They're publishing it on their website, stating that it's for 14 people. Well, this house was illegal. We got them into compliance. It looks like, I'd like to see what's going to happen with this home. They're advertising that at the college. They're looking for students to rent that home.
Can you give that to Beth?
Yeah, I gave a copy. Yeah, you can have
Okay.
this one.
Just so the law department
yeah,
has
I
it, we
gave
can
it-
follow
yes.
suit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeRosa, and thank you for your efforts at trying to protect your community.
Okay.
And Tony, I would say one other avenue maybe for your group. Just like the supervisor spoke about the county, we all have problems with the Department of Social Services. They feign ignorance at times, yet they mail all the checks to these houses. And obviously, if you have checks going, 7, 8 checks going to one address, you know there's a problem. Stony Brook University should have a list of where all of their students live. I don't know if you can get a copy of that from the university, if you can foil that, but obviously, if they keep something in any rudimentary database like Excel, you can pull up and just query simply by address. I mean, it's common. They have to know, in my opinion, unless it's something I don't know, they have to know where everyone lives. So if you know there's an issue and you know it's a tenuous relationship that's growing with the community, I think rather easily you can try to attenuate the situation by looking at your database where all of your students live and going out and trying to do something about it. And I would suggest that to the university president, that they take a look at the data they have on hand to see if they can do anything to ameliorate the situation.
I totally agree, and I'm looking forward to that meeting, Valerie. If you could set that up, sooner the better, as we said earlier. It's important that the university, at Dr. Stanley's level, be represented. Supervisor Romaine, the law department, they've been within our neighborhood. They've attended numerous meetings. They've helped us along. The university has attended meetings, but I don't think it's at the level that we need. If Supervisor Romaine could spend his time, and he has a very busy schedule, I know, I hate to either bother him, and I even hate to bother the law department with some of the issues we have, because I know they have a lot of things on their plate, but we need to get the university to step up. We've said this from the beginning. They're building dorms on campus. They say that a lot of students don't want to live on campus, okay? Well, that should not be our problem. That's their problem. They have to either curtail their enrollment or do something to provide housing for these students that does not disrupt the neighborhood, a single-family neighborhood that we worked very hard for, and we want to preserve our quality of life, and we need to get them to the table. We've tried, okay? We've had meetings with them. We've stopped over the last couple of months waiting for your meeting, because I think it's a great idea, and have a mediator there. But we got to get that going, and we got to get it going quickly, and you got to get him to make an appearance, to show the residents, to show the town that he's a team player, that he is cooperating with us to solve the problem. It is very rare that we hear anything from him. We get a couple of letters here and there, but we need him in presence with Supervisor Romaine and get this resolved once and for all.
Thank you, Mr. DeRosa. I know when my son attended Fordham University, he was not allowed, and he lived all 4 years on campus, but he was not allowed to even consider living on campus for his first 2 years, or even have a car on campus. He had to live on campus. There should be a requirement, particularly because Stony Brook accepts students from all over the world, some people that are not familiar with our culture, that there is a requirement to at least live on campus and to acclimate. And I don't see that, and I think that would be helpful in many, many ways to resolving this issue, a requirement for the first year or two that if you're going to go to Stony Brook and you're not going to have a home nearby, you're not going to be a commuter, that you live on campus.
And if I may, Mr. DeRosa, Our intention is to have this meeting by the end of the summer. That's our goal. I just have some things to finalize with the law department with respect to the actual structure of the actual meeting. I've listened to Councilman Panico and some of the things that Supervisor Romaine have said, as well as the comments from the public as the suggestions to Stony Brook University. It's my understanding that all of these suggestions have been made to Stony Brook University, which is why I think that we need a meeting such as this so we can figure out exactly where they are as it relates to the progress of working on these recommendations that have already been made to Stony Brook University. This is a problem, in my opinion, that can only be addressed if everyone plays a part and everyone gets involved. I have been meeting and working with Supervisor Romaine on this and these code amendments, as well as moving forward to have this meeting, which we hope to have, like I said, by the end of the summer. But it's important that we remember that this is not only an issue, of course, in Stony Brook and in my district, even though we have many people here from the community. Thank you so much from my district coming out today, because, again, it's important that this information is put out there. But it's a situation that we must address across the town of Brookhaven, which we're delicately working on to address with the law department. These proposed changes that we're putting forward today will help us with our enforcement measures. It'll address some of the safety concerns that were brought out today that have been an issue for quite some time. And we are also making some adjustments to the rental application. I've been working, again, with the law department on there and Supervisor Romaine, and it was, I think it's at the point of being approved right now. We're looking to request additional tenant information on the actual rental application, which will address some of the concerns of not knowing, who's living in the homes, requesting non-local owners to designate an agent on the forms. This addresses also the safety concerns. And we're also going to be adding disclosure language related to the landlord's obligation to report their income to the IRS and the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. These are just some measures that we're putting in our application, as well as some of the measures with respect to the proposed town code that we're doing as a town to fix this issue. And I will continue to work diligently on behalf of my district, and I will continue to try to fix this issue across the town with Supervisor Romaine. So we have other initiatives that we're working on, and I just wanted to take a moment to commend Supervisor Romaine with respect to the letter that he's sending out to the realtors. My office has been working, of course, with the law department to send out one to our district, but Supervisor Romaine has agreed to send it out to the entire town, which I think would be more effective, as this is a town issue, and if it comes from the entire board, I think that it will be just a bit more effective. So I wanted to say thank you to the entire board, as well as Supervisor Romaine and the law department for working alongside me and all of the members of the community with this issue. I've dealt with everyone that has an interest and will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We have no other speakers on this public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board? There being none, I will entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion to close carries.
Public hearing being closed, we'll move forward